Thank you and welcome to another Soul Sessions. Today we're here with John, and you're going to love the session. We're going to talk about finding balance. We're going to talk about what does it mean to have supportive parents, and we're going to talk about following your curiosity and what does that mean for you as an adult. Looking forward to having you this session. Stay tuned. So we're here with John. Happy to be here. We've known each other for over a year now or so, probably just about then. And in what we're doing here in Soul Session is really just recording these conversations or having, I like to call intimate conversation. To other people, it might not be intimate, but we're really just trying to help people who are figuring stuff out. John, you want to say hi to the people?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think this is going to be really fun. And I think it's a really intriguing topic, and I think we'll have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. So we like to dive right in. We're starting off, John, what we ask is would love to hear your origin story. What are 3 or so life factors that have made you who you are today?
3 factors. I'd say 1 being the biggest in the first, 20 years of life would be really, really supportive parents. Pretty curious kid and, interests and passions kind of went everywhere. And mom and dad were always 100% behind, whatever it might be. The second one would probably be the game of golf, which kind of mom and dad were massively supportive of, but grateful to have had something I could pursue at a world-class level, which is carried on to every part of life. And then I'd say the third would be curiosity. As a little kid and today as a 37-year-old. I think I'm really grateful for being curious, open to learning, asking questions, and just trying a ton of things.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. If you don't mind me ask more, you talked about supportive parents. In your scenario, what does that mean? What does that look like? Give me some examples.
Growing up, dad was a professional soccer player for several years, played in the U.S., and he stopped playing around the time I was born. So he was obviously a very passionate athlete. So any interest in sports, it was all out. Any team we could make, we wanted to play on, the proper equipment, the proper training, fully behind it. And that took a financial commitment, but I look back and it was a massive time commitment from dad coaching a lot of soccer, hockey teams, mom helping drive absolutely everywhere, flying around the country with mom, especially for golf. So they're very supportive in, pursuits like that. And I also think just at home day to day, they encouraged how important education was and doing well in school. And they were there helping with homework and setting the right environment, for me to have space to study and do well there too. And just in general, they were awesome parents.
Yeah.
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 Very loving.
That's good, man. You tend to hear the different sides of different stories, and a lot of people like to say a lot of things starts from the home.
Yeah.
A lot of things starts from the home. One of the things you also mentioned was golf. I don't know a lot of professional golf athletes, past or previous. So I'm curious, talk to me about that story. How did we get into that? What was that like?
I had my first club when I was 2 years old. Dad finished up playing professional soccer and immediately became hooked on golf. So I guess as young as 2, it was pretty easy. He could go, "Hey, Janet, I'm going to take John to the golf course." So I don't remember the club, but he said he cut a 7-iron in half, put a bunch of tape at the end, and apparently I would just run around and chase the Canadian geese around the course in Connecticut. But continued to go with him, and I guess I was getting lessons by the time I was 5, played my first tournament at 9, and by middle school, 10 or 11, I was hooked. I was really into it. And in Connecticut, it snows, so you can golf about 8 months out of the year. And I was really focused on golf those months. And by the time I got to high school, there was a really, really clear focus on, I want to play on the PGA Tour. I want to be one of the best players in the world. So I'm going to do everything it takes to get there. So at the time it was, Tiger Woods was, seemingly the most perfect person in the world. So it was just studying Tiger, what did he do growing up? What were his training regimens? Yeah. So by high school, it was very, very intense.
So that's interesting. And because you carried it on, one of the reasons that's interesting to me, because I talked to a lot of athletes, junior athletes that were almost forced into it, or they were trying to do it out of an extension of their parents. And what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, is it grew out of a place of passion, of love, that you were able to continue that. Like, am I in the right ballpark here, or?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I think support and influence from father being a professional, and obviously he was excited about that and encouraged it. But, I think could be a number of things, but I had some other really competitive golfers at the golf course that I grew up at. And there was a level of accountability there where we'd show up every day. Mom would drop my little brother and I off in the morning, and we were there all day, 9 till dark. And it just kind of became the norm, and like, that's what you knew. And then some of the older guys at the course were playing in all these tournaments. So you just follow along. That's what you do. So I think potentially having ended up at one of the very few golf courses in Connecticut or like the greater New York area that was really competitive was a great influence. My brother was as competitive, or maybe a stronger golfer. So having him around was great. And it was always my choice. But there was so much motivation and just energy around learning, improving, just like continuing to push myself and get better.
Yeah. Wow. I'm hearing some words, right? It's like, it was always my choice. And that's like hit me, because I think I oftentimes, like, we're in San Francisco and we talked to a lot of people who are doing things to please others. I'm curious, how does that mindset of it was always my choice, like, number one, has that changed as you've evolved and grown? And number two, like, how does that show up now in 37-year-old John?
It's funny. I feel very fortunate that I feel like I've lived many different lives since college golf and pro golf, and nearly all of them have just been me chasing a curiosity and doing my own thing, up until lately, where I kind of throttled that back, which has been a nice balance. And it's also kind of sucked in ways too. But yeah, I think that's where mom and dad, really had a great impact and continued to out of school. Whereas whatever I was doing, they're 100% supportive. And I don't know how deep you want to go on that, but I've talked to a therapist plenty about that in the past year, where they were so supportive. I've kind of brought that expectation on others, maybe past partners or close friends. And it's been interesting to realize that you can't expect that level of support out of everyone.
He's saying his parents were too perfect.
No, it's interesting to get that perspective. But yeah, after I played college golf at Berkeley and then graduated, and I played professionally for 3 years. And then I transitioned to, I started a business called Recruiter Elite, and it was helping high school athletes with college planning. So you could hire a graduated D1 athlete. Initially, it was just myself, and that graduated athlete would walk you through the college recruiting process, connecting with coaches, help with their college applications. And we built it up, and most high school athletes could hire someone for the sport that they were pursuing. And it was really cool. And I feel really grateful that I did that for 6 or 7 years. Yeah. And then I kind of went on and worked on a few other business projects for like 2 years, and then have pursued art for the last few years. Yeah, definitely all chasing my own curiosity and not so much.
You mind if I talk on, you talk about getting deep. I'm curious about like how you mentioned that there was an expectation of others to be supportive as your parents were. I'm curious, the opposite of that. Like, do you feel like, or would other people say like, John is a supportive person?
I would say yes. I think everyone has their strengths, in how they're going to support others and be there for them. I think something I've found, maybe one of the most valuable things in life, especially you realize this as you get older, is just having really strong relationships that can last decades. You know, as you get older, that's probably the thing you value most in your family, a partner, your best friends, new friends. And I would say that, I don't know if you'd call it a skill or just something I'm really aware of, is keeping up with friends and just making a point of sending a simple text, just like, hey, how are you doing? And checking in with friends and just building the skill of being able, no matter how much you have to talk about yourself, like shut up and just listen to your friends and, see how they're actually doing. And I think a little bit consistently can go a really long way.
I'm curious, you also made the transition. So you said you made the transition from professional sport. What was that like for you?
It wasn't that bad. It was a slow transition. So I would say start of my final year in college, I was like on the path to, trending to work my way to the PGA Tour. I was ranked top 50 in the world amateur rankings. And it was basically the path you needed to follow to then make it onto the secondary tour, which right now is the Korn Ferry Tour. And you progress for a year or two, you're on the PGA Tour. Great. Senior year, I didn't play as well as I would have liked. And, on paper, I still had a pretty strong ranking, and I was the captain of the Berkeley golf team. We're, top 10 team in the country. But I could just kind of tell, this was the year to really explode and take off, and it hasn't been that year. So in the 2.5, 3 years of pro golf, it never kind of took off, or I was at the level I thought I needed to be. I think a huge influence for me was the woman I was dating at the time. We were classmates at school, and she got into a really prestigious law school right out of undergrad. And I saw that, and I would, while I was, on the road playing, I'd go back, visit her, and her classmates were really interesting, really smart, and they had these big visions for what they wanted to do. And I was just impressed where she was taking her life, these people she was spending time around, impressed by her parents as well. They were both, one was an attorney, had his own large law practice in LA, and just got to a point where I didn't feel like the golf game was going to progress, within the next few years. And I was really motivated seeing her and her, her family, just how hard they worked, how eager and open they were to just learning all the time. And I think that was a huge motivator to be like, you know what? Golf has been so fun and golf has been life. And it feels weird. And it does feel like I'll lose a bit of my identity if I stop doing this. But I'm really fucking excited for this next chapter. And in those last 6 months of golf, I had kind of started building the itinerary for Recruiter Elite. And I talked to a few friends who were graduating. They're moving to San Francisco. So it kind of just flowed into this next chapter of, okay, golf has been life, not anymore. You can move to San Francisco and pursue this. I think it was actually the most exciting year of my life. Like, not even close. Most exciting.
There's thing here of you mentioned the person you were dating, and it feels like there's this prestige. You talk about being motivated, and the question that comes up for me was motivated to do what? Or was it just being in an environment that was high performing that tugged at you? And then you also talk about I always talk about mourning the loss of identity when you're going from one season to the next. There's a lot there. Any one of those threads you want to pull on?
Yeah, the motivation, sure, the prestige, but more, I think, motivated by spending time around her classmates, just how hard they were working. And it was so clear that they were bound for success. Combination of their work ethic, their attitude, the way they would speak about themselves. Yeah. And I just saw that. I was like, all right, That's it. Like, I know how to do a lot of this.
Yeah.
Like, I know how to work my ass off every single day. I'm going to apply a lot of this, like these skills and this groundwork I've built in my golf training and apply it to this new entrepreneur.
Oh man, I want to pull on that, like working hard. And how much is that tied to your identity? Or is it not? I don't know.
Yeah, it is. Good and bad.
How so?
I think I've definitely subscribed to the work hard and dumb more than work slow and smart at times. And I think there's a place for both. But yeah, I think pursuing golf at a young age and just academics and just building that endurance to work hard and work long hours and maintain focus, it's carried into anything business I've worked on or, anything at all.
What do you optimize for in your life right now?
Talk about working too hard. Balance.
Balance.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Means a lot. I have one handwritten note just taped on my wall next to my desk at home. And it says the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. And I tend to, when I'm trying to make sense of my life or any kind of project, I'll put things in buckets. And right now I'd say I have, 5-ish buckets. I have my job. I work at a small finance firm. I have an art practice, which is very time consuming. It's nearly a full-time job. And then I have like my own mental and physical health. So I consider that, a lot of fitness. I like to spend a lot of time mountain biking, road biking, surfing. And then I have a partner. She's amazing. Need to allocate plenty of time and presence for her. And then just a social life, It's really great to be in San Francisco and have so many friends around and find time for that. So 5 buckets, it brings me back to college. And the first meeting we had, my first year, our coach goes, he's this big 70-year-old Armenian guy, very, very bold, deep voice. And he goes, boys, you can do 2 things. You can do 3, but you can do 2 well. And he goes, you can study, you can golf, and you can party. And I think most guys on the team try to do all 3.
Why not?
But that concept has always stuck with me. I do think about having so many interests and having a job and having, maybe it's a business side project that you're really pursuing or this art practice, and just being aware like, hey, you're trying to do a lot every day. Please be really present of like how you're spending your time and energy, because it's easy to overdo it. I think about taking on all this stuff. It's so easy to just like burn yourself out, just press on the gas way too hard for 2 weeks, and then you spend a week recovering. So I spend a lot of time thinking about how am I balancing these things? Am I getting the right sleep? Am I being there for people who are important to me?
Yeah, balance.
I'll give you one more. I worked with an executive coach for about 3 years. He was awesome. And he gave this analogy because we very quickly realized John likes to gas himself out and just, push, trying to get where he's going 2 times too fast and then just have to recover and kind of start to rebuild. So he gave this analogy of trains. And this was more for like your business time allocation and energy. And he said, anytime you're working on something new, so it could be your first few months of a job, getting up to speed and getting comfortable with it. It could be a new business project where you're putting a lot more time and money into it than it's giving you back. That's you pushing a train uphill or pushing a train from a standstill, trying to get it up to its regular speed. And one of those projects takes 60% of your business energy. Once a train's up to speed, it's flowing, the processes, it's less load on your brain to operate it. it's only 20% once the train's up to speed. So he said, you can get one thing going 60%, but you can't do two at the same time. You can have something that's flowing, it's running, you maintain that, and then you can start pushing another one. I think about that a lot, and I feel like there's always something new or exciting or something really consuming, and it's a constant check of like a few times a year. It's like, this looks like you're pushing 2 trains and you don't have that.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that, man. I am curious. It's the balance, but it's what's end goal? Like, what is bliss for John?
I think that's being able to do so many things that I absolutely love doing for a very long time. I think I've been pretty convinced in different chapters that if I could just get there, that's the goal. Life would be perfect. PGA Tour, building that recruiting business much bigger than I built it, and sell a company, be financially stable, building this art practice that I've been building for the last 4 years. It was get it to a level where it's sustaining and then blow it up, do the biggest gallery shows here and there, paint the biggest murals you could ever imagine. And those all sound really cool, and those are sweet outcomes. But I look at it now and it's like, how cool to get to experience all these different things, but how cool to get to do all of them till I'm 80, older. And I look at it, it's like, for my physical body, if you run yourself down, you're not going to be able to surf and ski and ride bikes till you're really old. I don't know. I just keep coming back to balance.
Yeah. It's like staying in that like sweet spot for a long time.
Yeah. I think we were talking about it earlier today, but like we're delicate humans. You were a professional runner and just normal wear and tear, taking good care of your body, you have a stress fracture, and it can be really limiting. I think about with all this balance, like times I've pushed it way too far, I've had plenty of broken bones. I tore all the tendons off this shoulder skiing. I broke my shoulder blade mountain biking a few years ago. I've broken this collarbone skateboarding, a million different things. But I think we're a great example of where I really, really pushed myself too far. I was hanging paintings at a gallery about 2.5 years ago in New York. I was up on a ladder, ended up falling from the ladder. My feet were probably 12 feet up in the air, broke my ankle into pieces. Really brutal. Couldn't walk for a good 6+ months, and now it's really, really painful to run. And I look at kind of the things that built up to that point. It was a 2-day bender of painting canvases. We had 10-foot canvases to paint. I was with one other artist. Just such a massive project. It was something that probably could have taken a week. Just really pushed it. And I remember talking to my executive coach, Julian, like in this time, and just telling him like, hey man, this is exhausting. I don't know if we can get it done, but we're just going to push through. We're going to make this happen. It's going to be awesome. And he's like, please be careful. Listen to your body. If you need sleep, get it. And, please be conscious of this for the future. And really, really pushed it. Ended up falling, had this break, and it's really been life-changing. So I think it's a good lesson of just like how important it is to be consistent with everything and like stay balanced.
Man, yeah, that's an interesting thing because we talk about like being insane in one area. And I always think about like you can go crazy in one area, but at a certain point in time, it catches up to you.
Yeah.
Like you can only pull so many all-nighters,
Yeah.
you know?
It's fun to be insane in one area.
It is.
And it's fun to go really hard.
It is. And it always, and in every era, right? Where it's like you could be a genius artist, but what does it take away from other areas of your life? If you think about those 5 buckets, if you fill up 2 and leave the other 3 empty, where does that land you? And how long can you keep that up?
It's not a fulfilling life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
I agree with you. I like the word insane. It is fun to be like all out and consumed in something.
Yeah.
If you're passionate about it, like
totally. Right?
So damn cool.
Again, it's like that flow state, that mastery that you be in. Like I love a flow state, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of things has to like fade away. A lot of things you can't be bogged down to be in flow.
No. It's interesting. I was talking to a friend about this like a week ago, and someone brought up flow state, and they're like, I've figured out how to get in a flow state for this thing. And I don't know how it came up, but I was like, honestly, getting in a flow state is amazing, and they can be the best thing and the most productive thing. And they can also be pretty hurtful, like towards yourself and other people in your life. If you're considering a flow state being something where you plug into the action and it changes the way you focus on things, you're able to block out everything on the outside and just flow through this thing, and time actually disappears. Yeah. And I definitely feel that a little bit mountain biking solo, but absolutely painting out at a mural outside or in the studio indoors. Can go in, I'm going to go paint after this. You can get in, start painting at 7 p.m. and finish at 3 a.m. And you look at the time and just like, wow. Get home, you need another 2 hours to like settle down.
Mm-hmm. Come off the high.
Oh yeah. And then you realize like, okay, I'm going to bed at 5.
Yeah.
Something's paying the price the next day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool, man. Well, we'll jump in some quick fire questions. I didn't even get to talk about how you got into painting, but maybe the next time around we'll get you there.
Cool.
What is something that might surprise others about you, John?
I think for most people that I meet for the first time, the fact that I'm a street artist going out in the middle of the night and painting at times. Yeah.
Why is that surprising?
I think about that like being in San Francisco. Most people I meet, if it's through friends, it's, oh, John was the golfer, or, John did this business for a long time, and less of, oh yeah, he paints these giant cartoons on buildings.
Would you want to be known for that?
To a degree. I think it's fun. I don't think I aspired to it being kind of like my identity. Fun to have that as part of me and something to share with people though. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. It's part of it. The obscurity brings it delight sometimes. You don't want to be too tied to it. Another one we have, like, where do you feel the safest to be yourself? What things are true? Who are you around?
One would absolutely be doing some of these outdoor sports with some of my closest friends. A big mountain bike ride or a backcountry ski, surf trip, something like that. It's been really cool to develop friend groups with each of these sports. And, yourself being an athlete, you definitely share a bond struggling with someone else. And I think it's really special when you choose to engage in that struggle and just do it in a beautiful setting. So 100% spending those really long, challenging days with close friends. I feel comfortable and free, and I feel like I become closer with them every time. And then the other one, which is so different and still very new, would be painting a mural outdoors. And it's fun. It feels like being a little kid, like climbing trees. But now you get to listen to rap music and do it with your friends and drink beers at the end. But I think what's so cool about it is as long as you're really conscious of what you're painting and in what neighborhood, because people in that neighborhood are going to see this thing for a really long time, you are there for, say 2 or 3 days, and you get to engage with the entire neighborhood. And it's so cool because you're up there, you're putting something up basically for them. And you engage with so many strangers. And in between those engagements, I have headphones on most of the day, or there's music on, and you're just painting this massive, massive thing. You're just kind of flowing through a process. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Last two, maybe we roll it into one. Like, how do you deal with the changes in your life? And arguably, you've been through a lot.
Mm-hmm. When I hear that, I think of like the difficult changes, like difficult moments.
Well, why do you think about difficult and not the positive, the fun stuff? Those are changes too, right?
Good point. Yeah. No, they are. I'll address the difficult ones first. About a year ago, I had like 3 of probably the biggest changes you could take on and did them all at once, which I don't recommend to anyone. I ended a long-term relationship. I changed careers and I changed cities. So I moved from Venice Beach back up to San Francisco. I broke up with the woman I'd been dating for about 3 years. And I moved from being a full-time artist to working a finance job. And it was actually shocking. Like, it was so much to take on. And it was helpful to just have like the wisdom of having lived long enough to be able to refer back to similar times. And for me, it was like the clearest ones are basically like stop drinking at all. It's not going to help. Start exercising even more and eating even healthier, just to have the clearest mind possible. And I think just really being in tune with your feelings. And I feel a bit like a hypocrite saying that, because in this time, it was really, really tough, like a year ago. And I went and saw a therapist, like a proper therapist, very different than an executive coach. And we worked really hard on just being able to like identify what are you feeling in this present moment, and just being aware if you're feeling lonely or ashamed or angry, embarrassed, worried about everything in the future, like, don't try and change it. Like, that's how you're feeling. It's going to pass. That was really helpful to just like be in a time of change where there were so many emotions, and it was helpful to get some guidance, but just be aware of like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. It will get better. But yeah, so it was really helpful.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you so much. As we come to a close, John, any final thing you want to share with folks about our session, or any questions that you're like, I want to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think this has been so fun. I think, when it comes to, we've kind of touched on like figuring it out and getting to where you want to be. Man, I think the biggest thing is being really clear on what you want, and then being really clear on what are the small things I can do consistently every single day. And that's what's going to get you there. It's definitely not the single big sprint or the one thing that's going to make it. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank
you.